The Erasure Specialist. Disclaimer: this story is entirely fictional and created for entertainment purposes only. Any resemblance to real events or persons is purely coincidental. They told me during training that some jobs choose you, not the other way around. I never understood what that meant until the first manila folder appeared on my doorstep. No postmark, no delivery truck. Just there like it had always belonged. Inside was a single photograph of an abandoned warehouse and an address written in precise handwriting. Below that, 3 words: "Make it forgotten." That was 7 years ago. Since then, I've become what they call an erasure specialist. When reality breaks down, when things happen that shouldn't exist, when witnesses start talking about impossible events, that's when I get called in. Not to investigate. Not to document, to erase. The folders arrive differently now. Sometimes tucked under my windshield wipers, sometimes slipped under my apartment door while I sleep. Once, I found one in my jacket pocket during a grocery run, though I swear it wasn't there when I left home. Each one contains an assignment that officially never happened, in a place that will soon be forgotten. My equipment fits in a single black case. Specialized cameras that capture more than light. Chemical compounds that dissolve memories from surfaces. Devices that measure psychic residue and neutralize it. Everything custom-made, everything unmarked, everything designed to leave no trace behind. The rules are simple: get in. Document what needs to be erased. Remove all evidence. Get out. Never ask why. Never dig deeper. Never try to understand what you're cleaning up. Just make it disappear. Last month took me to a small farming community in Nebraska. Population 847, according to the welcome sign. The folder contained a newspaper clipping about strange lights in the cornfields and locals reporting missing time. My job was to discredit the witnesses, confiscate any photos, and ensure the story never gained traction. The drive took me through endless stretches of farmland, broken only by silos reaching toward an overcast sky. The town sat in a depression between rolling hills, its main street lined with buildings that looked like they hadn't been updated since the 1950s. Perfect for things to hide in plain sight. I checked into the only motel, a rundown place called the Harvest Inn. The desk clerk, a weathered man with suspicious eyes, barely looked up when I signed the register under my cover identity. Local insurance investigator, looking into unusual weather damage claims, boring enough that people wouldn't ask questions. The first witness lived in a farmhouse 3 miles outside town. Martha Henley, 67, retired teacher. According to her statement to the local sheriff, she'd seen a massive triangular craft hovering over her cornfield for nearly an hour. When she tried to photograph it with her phone, the screen went black. When the craft finally moved away, she found a perfect circle of withered corn in her field. I found Martha in her kitchen, hands wrapped around a coffee mug like it was an anchor. Her eyes held that distant look I'd seen before, the kind that comes from witnessing something that challenges everything you thought you knew about the world. "You hear about the lights?" she asked without looking up. I nodded, pulling out my notebook. Standard procedure. Let them talk, record everything, then systematically dismantle their credibility. But as Martha described that night, the absolute silence that preceded the sighting, the way her dogs had hidden under the porch for 3 days afterward, the strange dreams that followed, I noticed something unusual. The psychic residue detector in my pocket was humming, faintly but consistently. This wasn't supposed to happen. Hoax cases never triggered the equipment. I spent the afternoon interviewing 5 other witnesses. A farmer who'd lost 2 hours driving home from town, finding himself parked in his own driveway with no memory of the journey. A teenager who'd photographed strange symbols burned into a wheat field, only to discover the images had vanished from her camera's memory card. An elderly man who swore he'd seen figures in reflective suits walking through his pasture in broad daylight. Each interview made the detector hum louder. By evening, I realized I wasn't dealing with mass hysteria or small-town attention-seeking. Something had actually happened here, something real, and I was being sent in to bury it. The withered circle in Martha's cornfield was exactly as she described. Perfectly round, maybe 60 feet across, with stalks that looked like they'd aged decades in a single night. The detector was practically screaming when I approached the center. I set up my equipment as the sun disappeared behind the horizon. Standard documentation protocol, even though I knew these readings would never make it into any official report. The cameras captured energy signatures I'd never seen before, radiation levels that shouldn't exist in rural Nebraska, electromagnetic disturbances that made my instruments glitch and reset. Then I heard the humming. Low at first, almost below the range of human hearing, it seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, like the earth itself was vibrating. The corn around the circle began to sway, though there was no wind. My equipment started registering off-the-scale readings. That's when I saw the light, a soft, silver glow rising from the center of the circle, not harsh like a floodlight, but gentle, almost welcoming. It pulsed in rhythm with the humming, and I felt an overwhelming urge to walk toward it. Every logical part of my mind screamed warnings, but my feet began moving anyway. I was 5 steps into the circle when training finally kicked in. I forced myself to stop, to back away, to remember what I was here to do: erase, not investigate, not experience, erase. I returned to my car and began the standard procedure. Upload the photos to the secure server where they would be analyzed and then deleted. Submit my report recommending witness discrediting and media suppression. Pack up my equipment and move on to the next assignment. But something had changed. As I drove away from Martha's farm, I found myself thinking about the folder that had started this job, the handwriting that had seemed so familiar, the way it had appeared on my doorstep like magic. For the first time in 7 years, I started asking the questions I'd been trained not to ask. Who was sending me these assignments? How did they know about incidents like this so quickly? And why was I always sent in after the fact, to clean up rather than prevent? That night in my motel room, I did something I'd never done before. I kept copies of the photos, hidden them on a secure drive, encrypted and password protected. If someone was using me to cover up genuine phenomena, I wanted evidence of what was really happening. The next morning, my rental car wouldn't start. The local mechanic said it would take days to get parts. I was effectively stranded in a town where I'd just finished discrediting half the population. But strangest of all, when I checked my equipment case, one of the devices was missing. The psychic residue detector, the one that had been humming constantly since I'd arrived. In its place was a note, written in that same precise handwriting I'd seen on countless folders. Some things are meant to be forgotten. Others are meant to find you. I'm writing this from the motel room, waiting for a replacement car that may never come. The locals are starting to remember their experiences more vividly, despite my efforts to discredit them. Martha called this afternoon to say the circle in her corn has started glowing again, and I keep thinking about that note, about the missing detector, about how the folders always seem to know exactly where to find me, no matter where I moved or how carefully I covered my tracks. What if I'm not an erasure specialist at all? What if I'm something else entirely, a magnet, drawing these phenomena out of hiding so they can be cataloged and controlled? What if every assignment I've completed has been feeding information to someone with a very different agenda? The humming has started again. I can hear it through the motel room walls, rising from somewhere beneath the town. My remaining equipment is going haywire, registering energy patterns that shouldn't exist anywhere on Earth. I think my 7-year career in Erasure is about to end, but something tells me my real job is just beginning. And whatever sent me that first folder 7 years ago, I don't think it's done with me yet. The story continues. What do you think happened to our erasure specialist? Have you ever witnessed something that defied explanation? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more mysterious tales. Your support keeps these stories alive and helps us explore the unknown together. Remember to hit the notification bell so you never miss when we dive into the next chilling mystery. And let us know in the comments what kind of supernatural encounter would terrify you most. Disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction created for entertainment purposes. Any resemblance to real events, locations, or persons is purely coincidental.